Today I'm joined by Mohamed Aljanahi. It's a pleasure to have you with me.
Pleasure
I'm
to be
excited
here.
about this conversation because you and I, we've been exchanging messages on Instagram, built a bit of an Instagram friendship, but we've never really had a sit-down moment, the two of us, a bit of a heart-to-heart. So now's the time. Welcome, Mohamed.
Thank you. Thanks, Max. It's a pleasure to be here.
I mean, it's a blessing. I mean, let's get straight into it. Tell us the story of the first time you heard about paddle.
The first time actually was, it was funny. It was during Ramadan. There was a NAS Ramadan tournament, which everyone knows about now. And one of my friends called me and he's like, there's this sport called Padel. And I was like, what is it? He said it's similar to tennis. And he said, there's a tournament happening. Do you want to participate and be part of my team? And during Ramadan, there wasn't any tennis events going on or any activations. So I was like, yes, for sure. And it was indoors. So we participated, and it was a teams event, and there was a UAE Nationals category. In the teams event, I participated with my friend in his team. This was in 2014. And in the UAE Nationals category, I participated with my brother, Faris Aljanahi.
You mentioned your brother, Faris, and obviously in the UAE, you guys, as the Janahi family, almost a dynasty, you could call it, of paddle players, tennis players. How are you guys so good at racket sports?
First of all, I'll say that's all a blessing from Allah. Thanks to Allah for that. Alhamdulillah. Honestly, Max, it's a lot of practice, it's a lot of dedication. Before Padel, we used to play tennis almost every day. So I think all that build-up of tennis has led to this racket sport, which is Padel right now, and then has given us a bigger upper hand in a skill-wise set, let me say, for us, rather than starting from zero in Padel. So I think that helped majorly in playing tennis previously, as a lot of Padel players are transitioning from tennis to Padel or from squash to Padel.
Definitely. Which of the Janahis would you say is the best paddle player?
Of course, Mohamed Aljanahi.
He's great. Yeah, I've heard he's an excellent player. I look
I am
forward
the
to playing with him. I'm sure your brother will have something to say about that.
Honestly, I believe it's my brother Faris Aljanahi. I believe he's the best. He's the most competitive, has more skill set than me or the others. Abdurrahman is between tennis and paddle, but he plays paddle a lot. Majid is also up there with Faris. But we like to compete, all of us.
You guys play together?
Yeah, we do. So last time we had a match, all four of us. It was me and Abdurrahman because we're the eldest, against Faris and Majid, who are the two youngest. And unfortunately, the younger generation won.
Oh.
So I need to train Abdurrahman, and we need to get back.
Yeah,
get
we'll have to set up a rematch for that. I would love to see that.
Let's do it.
Do you guys trash talk?
A lot.
Really?
Every day.
In Arabic?
Arabic, English, you name it. In Spanish if we can too.
Really?
At home, in the court.
Is the trash talk worse in English or in Arabic?
In English.
Yeah?
But it's within limits. It's within competitive limits.
Yeah, it's in good spirit, right?
Yes, it's in good spirit. No, it's not mean.
Because whenever I've come across like Arabic insults or Arabic trash talk, it's super, super violent, like right out there. I think it's hilarious. Like not a lot of Europeans especially kind of have exposure to that. And it's the humor that you can get sometimes from the Arabic language, I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it could get extreme, and a lot of people are not used to it. But we control that limitation over there, I guess.
I mean, it's good that you keep the respect between the brothers.
Of course, yeah, you have to always be at the strongest bond with your family, and starts with your brother, your sister, your parents, and then from there it grows.
Yeah. So after this first tournament that you won, UAE National category, then how was the journey after that?
So after that, NAS had a coach, a head coach, Sandy. Everyone knows him, obviously. So he contacted me and said, do you want to continue playing Padel in NAS and train and try to get more serious about it? And then obviously I accepted because it was perfect conditions. And for me to explore the new sport, especially with tennis, the downtrend it had in the UAE, I was more than happy to do so. And it was a pleasure for Sandy to call me and to be part of that. So After that Ramadan in 2014, we started training in NAS. You could say we were a group of 4 to 6 players, and then they introduced some fitness training, paddle related, uh, and then we continued. However, there wasn't a lot of competition out there, so you would train in NAS, you would compete with the players there. With Sandy would play a lot with us. He was miles better than all of us in the court. And then you had competitions happening in Emirates Golf Club and in Abu Dhabi Golf Club. So I remember at the time you would drive once every 3 months to Abu Dhabi and play in Abu Dhabi Country Club, or every weekend you would have a social event in Emirates Golf Club. So I used to go a lot to those. We used to start sometimes 7 a.m. and it would go on up to 7 p.m. This is 2014, 15, 16. Uh, it wasn't so competitive, but the level like was not so high, obviously, but it was fun. It was so much fun. Every time I went there, I met someone new. Every time I went there, I had a good experience. You never had a bad experience, and it was always a big group. Everyone who participated in the social slash tournament would stay to the end, which was like 7 to 8 p.m., and watch the final, and then everyone would head home. So that was the biggest factor which kept me addicted to it, is the social factor of every time I played, every time I had a match, I met someone new.
I mean, this is 10 years ago. I mean, it's crazy how much the sport has changed since then. But what was the profile of players playing paddle 10 years ago, other than yourself and a few people who were playing in NAS?
So you had, I can say this actually confidently, Sandy was the best in the UAE, not just Dubai. And then NAS onboarded a coach, Javi Lopez, and then it was between them. So they were like miles ahead of everyone at the time. And then you had other players, but who weren't full time, like Sandy and Javi. So you had like Emilio, you had Pedro, and then there's another really good tennis coach who used to play really good in Padel. I forgot his name. It's not on my mind right now. He used to play with Emilio also. So you had like 6 top players in the UAE. And then everyone else, you could say, was a C minus.
Okay, yeah, so a huge gap in the levels.
Yeah.
I mean, did you expect the sport to grow as much as it has done in the past 10 years?
Honestly, I always felt people would enjoy the sport. I always felt it has potential. But what we see today was something I didn't even imagine. It was like, it was a dream for me at the time to have so many options of clubs to go play a tournament at, to go play a social at, to go play a match. So many options of players to play with, which we have today. We didn't at that time. So at that time, I would try to arrange a match with the group in NAS, and if no one was able to, then I would have to resort to Emirates Golf Club. And then from there, we would have to do a matchmaking, which always was successful. They had a very successful matchmaker, and they would always find different current matches.
That's great, even at that time, that you're able to fill your matches, because that's always the struggle of paddle, isn't it? Finding the four players.
Yes.
What do you think really kicked off paddle in the UAE?
I mean, funny enough, if you look at it, if you look at the series of events, it's the COVID. I think compared to other sports or other hobbies, the main factor which helped paddle is that because of COVID rules at the time, there was a distance between the players, and apparently that's the main thing which allowed paddle to continue when gyms were closed or other events were closed. It allowed paddle to continue, and it just boomed. And at the time, people didn't discover, but it's a very addictive sport. It's a very addictive sport. Once you start, it's so hard to stop. Unless if you have an injury, and you'll notice a lot of players, even like social players, if they get an injury and stop for a while, they're always back.
Yeah, it's a sport where everyone can play, right? It's accessible
Yes.
to everybody. I mean, I look at my parents, they're over the age of 60, they play paddle, they enjoy it, and you've got people older than that do enjoy it. The UAE now, you have a lot of juniors as well getting into the sport at a young age, and it doesn't have that strain on the body that tennis could have on certain people. Um, Obviously, your involvement in the sport for the past 10 years, it's really, like you said, since COVID that it's really taken off. Where do you see it going from now?
Honestly, internationally, like I believe the next Olympics, we should see paddle because there's a lot of other competitive sports which have a less advantage compared to paddle globally, which are already on the Olympics. So I believe paddle should be next in the Olympics. This is internationally. In the GCC, it has grown like I don't have the numbers percentage wise or statistically, but it has grown so much, and now you see it expanding so much in Saudi Arabia, for example, which is the largest GCC country. So that's the biggest impact which you will see. Now, I see it growing. I see it growing. I see it here to stay. So if you're going to talk about the GCC at least, or in these hot countries, it will really depend on indoor facilities. That's
Yeah.
a big factor which will play into the sport.
I mean, Dubai, you have a lot of great indoor facilities now, and there's still more being built, more and more every month, which I think is great.
I love it.
I mean, the more courts there are, the more players there are, the more the sport's going to grow, and I think it's great for everybody. Um, as you mentioned, the Olympics. I was watching the Olympics, and now you have skateboarding, you have speed rock climbing,
Breakdancing.
breakdancing. I mean, I do agree. I think paddle deserves to be within that mix of sports. And in regards to the GCC and the other Gulf countries, obviously you've competed for your national team for the UAE. How was that experience?
Honestly, it was one of the, if not the best experience of my life. There's no greater feeling than representing your flag and doing everything you can to reach your maximum potential because you're representing your country and everyone who stands behind you. So it's a very hard feeling to describe, but it's such a proud feeling, and you really forget about everything and you just have that target to do your best and to just compete and try to win everything.
And it's amazing also the support that you guys have locally. When you were competing, I can't remember which of the competitions it was in NAS, and it was packed. The amount of support, the amount of people that show up to support the UAE national team in paddle, I've not seen that in other sports. It's like it's sport that's really grabbed the imagination of the UAE, and everyone wants to support you guys, and everyone's behind it. You guys are all stars, you're superstars, you're famous for being paddle players.
I mean, honestly, for me, like if I go back to the GCC Cup, uh, honestly, I never realized or noticed the amount of people who were in the stadium, especially that night. I never noticed until we finished the tournament after that championship point, and I just look around and I was just shocked. And then later, when people told me that the stadium was overpacked, so let's say the limit was 2,200, it had 3,000. That was the numbers I heard. But when I was watching the picture, looking at the pictures later, I think I saw people cramped up on the stairs, and it was just fully packed, like you just mentioned. And it was amazing. It was such a blissful feeling, and it's an honor to be able to. It's always an honor to be able to represent the national team and to have everyone's support, of course.
I mean, I can only imagine what that feeling is. I've never represented my country, and I do envy you for that. Um, what do you think is missing for paddle in the UAE to go to the next step?
Well, honestly, Max, if you look at it like, alhamdulillah, we have, you could say everything. So we have academies, we have clubs, we have tournaments, we also have so many social events. We have so many sponsors, so many brands who are out there sponsoring players or athletes, regardless if they're pros uh, or people who play as a hobby. At the same time, you have people who are full time. So I'm not gonna say there's something missing, but I'm gonna say that after after COVID and how the sport has grown in the UAE, so we're only learning, right? And I believe we're moving in a very good direction. Of course, with the support of the federation, the UAEPA, they're very supportive with all the clubs. And then you have the Ramadan events they create, uh, the tours, the engagement they have with the clubs, where like from what I heard, that you can bid for a tournament to host it in your club, which is part of the federation tour. So that's also a really good step we're taking. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna say there's something missing. I'm gonna say we're learning and there's more we can do. Uh, for example, there's one thing I've been wanting to see since 2022 July, for instance, specifically that date, because that's the date where I wanted to see it. I had the idea, proposed it to a couple of people, but it just went off because a lot of things came up. So there's one thing which I believe we should have, at least in the UAE or at least Dubai, is a tour between a league between clubs. So the idea is not to have, oh, my club is better than yours. No, it's to compete and to grow the levels of everyone. The level is to grow between everyone, because if you look at the levels we have here, the highest level in the UAE is not even is not the highest level in the world as 180, as a player ranked 180, for example.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna have a player who's ranked like that, and then not want the others to grow, we're not gonna grow.
I mean, it was, I think, last year, it was January 2023, myself and a few other clubs, we tried to put together this, like the idea of an interclub,
Yeah.
where all the clubs would compete against each other. We trialed it with 6 clubs, I think, at the time. Obviously, as a voluntary basis, there was no money involved, there was no prizes. The issue we faced, and we did 2 seasons of this, the issue we faced was a lack of maturity of the players. So there was categories,
Okay.
right? We had a beginner category, an intermediate category, and an advanced category. And every single encounter, you'd play always against a different club. One of the teams would find a way to go around the rules and put a really strong team or someone never met, and then they end up destroying them and winning, just for the sake of the ego of winning that encounter, right? And obviously then the other teams would complain, and it created a whole negative thing. And it came from a very sincere and honest place to help the community and do something to benefit everybody. And it's something that I would love to get up and running again, and maybe it's something that we can discuss and work on together. But I'm genuinely afraid that we will encounter that same issue.
Uh, so the issue of leveling or having people sneak in, I mean, this has been happening since 2022. It's been happening where a lot of people have been, I mean, everyone knows this, but a lot of people have been trying to steal other lower levels by sneaking in and winning them. Regardless, everyone gets caught. And then there's another thing where, so there's a new system Sami's developing, the WPPR, which is like a rating system. So this could be used definitely, not to give an estimate of the rating, and then to set a specific rating for each category. Now, the thing is, you will have to disqualify if someone is out of their level, of course, and people just have to accept it, because I understand where you're coming from, but let's say you set a certain level, right? Let's say you're a B level right now, and I'm a C plus, and there's always going to be someone slightly higher than the other.
Yeah.
So in reality, also, when it comes, like, this is a very long discussion or argument people have, but you're never going to have people in the same category, the same level. So, for example, you can have the A category players who play the UAEPA 100. You can have an easy win by a certain team, but they're all A levels. That doesn't mean one of them is a B or a team is a B. They're still top professional players. The
I mean,
ones,
even look at Premier Padel. Look at the first rounds of Premier Padel. They're all professional paddle players,
yes,
and yet you have very easy scores in these first rounds until the quarterfinal, even sometimes semifinals. None of the matches are particularly competitive, but they're all competing at the same level. And I do agree with you on this point. It's never going to. There's no such thing as a straight line of level.
never.
There's always going to be stronger and weaker, and that's just the way it is, and that's competition.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not comparing our levels here with the professionals, but you saw Tapia and Arturo lose to Chingoto and Galan. I believe it was 6-1, 6-2, which is something you wouldn't even imagine. I didn't believe my eyes watching that match, and I never want to watch it again because I love Tapia. But just you're always going to have that level difference. However, if we apply the system, the rating system, when it comes to this tournament with the set guideline, whichever it is, for the league, sorry, I don't think there will be an issue. I think this will help it because, sorry,
Yeah, I mean, if it's data driven, like with the system, I think it's going to be helpful than the subjective leveling that we have currently. It's like me saying to you, Mohammed, you're a B player, or someone else might say, Mohammed, you're a C plus player. Someone might say you're a B plus player, and then everyone has a different opinion, and it's very hard to level based on subjective.
someone will say, "Oh, you're A," but not, you're. It will always have a different range. It will always have. Someone will look at you as a A, they will look at you as a C. Someone else will look at you as a C plus.
And then you go to Spain and you're a D.
I wish you were a D. I wish I was a D there. No.
You
So,
mentioned Premier Padel. Who is your favorite Premier Padel player?
definitely Tapia.
Why?
Uh, to me, regardless of what I've heard from multiple of my friends, Tapia is the Roger of paddle. For me, the way I saw Roger is the way I see Tapia. He makes it look so easy. Like you see Tapia smash, you think you can replicate that. But then your ball doesn't even reach the net or barely goes out. And if it goes once or twice, he can do it 20 times. And the other pros struggle to do that. His style, his decision making, he's just so smart on the court. Compared to the other players, you don't see him like engaged with activities different than Padel. He's just so focused on his career, uh, his energy. His energy on court is compared to the other players. He's so clean. He's so clean on the court, and that's the only person I've seen on in the Padel tour. He's the cleanest I've seen, and that's just that type of class. It's you've only seen it with Roger. You haven't seen it with any other player. Like the way
Yeah,
they
he does
both.
maintain a level of
He
professionalism
does.
on court that you don't see in a lot of paddle players. They're very erratic. A lot of them, they get very angry, and you
Yes.
see a lot of attitude on court as
And
well.
they say stuff. They say stuff. A lot of them have said stuff towards players on the court where the referee has given them warnings. I mean, there was a match, Tapia Arturo versus LeBron and Galan. I think it was in Paraguay or Peru. I'm not Paraguay, I believe. Basically, when they won the match, and then there was an issue with the ref,
Yeah,
and 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 I'm sorry, the way Tapia controlled himself and led Arturo on that court, and they lost the second set, and then they won the third, the final. It was just I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but that's one of the main reasons. Like, I respect this guy so much.
I mean the game professionally has changed a lot as well, right? I mean, we're kind of seeing it now. I don't know if when you started playing in 2014, you were following professional paddle at the time or not.
During that time, I used to love Bella. I knew no one but Bella and Juan Martin Diaz.
I mean, they were dominating everything at the time,
Yeah.
and I feel bad for them because, and through no fault of their own, they've reached an age where they're retiring when paddle is literally booming. It's such a sad thing to see such great players not really benefiting from the development. Obviously, they've been a part of the development, but they're not benefiting from the development of the sport. And this new generation, I mean, of Tapia and these guys, even if they're not in their early 20s, they have such a golden age of paddle ahead of them that I believe they couldn't even have imagined at that time. Growing up in Argentina or in Spain, to think this is what paddle would be in 2024, I don't think it would be that way in anyone's wildest dreams.
No, and then you can say Like, I can see Bella completely different than Juan Martin, the way he's continued rather than retired. He announced 2024 will be his last year, but he has his paddle centers, he has his official product or merchandise. So I don't know how that's going for him, but I saw a report, I think it was a year back. This is off topic of Bella, but Babolat announced that the sales of their paddle equipment have exceeded the tennis equipment. Was it Babolat? I think it was Babolat. I read
Really?
Babolat or Wilson, one
And
of
they
the
have
two.
an insane market share in tennis.
Yeah, but you see how paddle is growing everywhere.
And also, you break a paddle racket every 3 months. They don't last.
You don't break a tennis racket unless
I've had the same head radical since 2001.
you break a tennis string.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. But I mean, the future of the sport is definitely getting there. It's growing in America. Thank God that has happened because we've been waiting for that, for the Americans to get into paddle because America is huge. And then I heard also that it's growing in China.
That'll be a big one.
So that should be a big one, yes, because apparently they're very enthusiastic about racket sports, squash, badminton. But let's see if that picks up over there. It will go well if it does.
I think it's interesting how the US, how they do major sports. So they do this whole franchise model and then they make teams. So even in paddle, they've made teams. So it's team encounters. Whereas obviously, I mean, Premier Paddle, it's an individual, well, double sport, right? You're not playing for a team. I think it's a really interesting way of doing that. And do you think that's something that could work here?
Having a league, you mean?
Yeah, having like mini franchises.
See, so for example, we haven't exactly like you said, you had that league of 6 clubs, but then there was a club tournament which was organized by MatchSpot and held in Habtoor Sports Hub. So that had a great result. If you go back to it, that wasn't a league, it was a tournament. It
It
was
was a 1 day event, right?
a weekend.
We
So you could say a 4-day event because I think it had qualification rounds. That had a great effect. I recall the final had a lot of people attending. It was fully packed. Obviously, not the size of NAS, but it was packed. It was a revival at that time. And so this is the point I was going back, is when I want to see a league, is similar to the one you just mentioned. I think that needs to be endorsed or at least kickstarted here.
But do you think people have the loyalty to the clubs here?
Well, see, honestly, when it comes to that, I can't speak on behalf of people, but for me, for sure, I can say yes. So I can't speak on behalf of people, right?
I mean, WPA runs in your veins. Pretty much you've been there since day one.
It's orange and blue here. It's not red. You know that, Max.
What do you think makes WPA such a great club?
In the sense of WPA will offer you an academy in order if you want to compete or if you want to train at a competitive level. They will offer you academy training with different levels in order for you to competitively level up. All right? That's one major point. Another major point is will offer you different social matchmakings, different group matchmakings also, if you're looking for that. And then you have the different tournaments which they host. Another thing, WPA has a vision where they don't just want to stay here. For example, you have a branch, you can reach WPA in Khorfakan, which is like close to Fujairah. You can reach it in Sharjah if you're in Sharjah. And then you can reach it in Dubai if you're in Dubai, and Abu Dhabi. And then, now let's leave the UAE. You can reach it in Bahrain soon. And then you can reach it in the UK soon. So WPA has this hidden message of where they want to support and grow the sport internationally, not besides domestically. They do want to grow the sport. They have invested so much. They have supported so much. They have hosted so many large events which bring the people together. to compete in a friendly way. Uh, for me, I mean, for me individually, WPA means a lot. Like it's very hard to describe, honestly.
WPA was one of the first indoor clubs in the UAE, right? And since WPA opened, everyone has been looking towards WPA and copying a lot of what they've done, and they've been the benchmark for a lot of the clubs that have opened after them. Because, as you mentioned, there has been a lot of big tournaments have been there. They were some of the first to bring, at the time, World Padel Tour players to the venue. Obviously, they invested a lot of money into their coaches, having great coaches, and into the academy, and obviously a lot of focus on the UAE national players as well, and the future of the game as well with the juniors. Are you involved in the juniors as well?
In what sense?
Are you helping them? Are you coaching them? Are you teaching them your tricks?
So obviously, I never overstep the coaches, and because I'm not as experienced as they are, so I'll never intervene with a coach or I'll never disagree with a coach. But do I play with the juniors? Yes, as much as I can. If they ask me for a game or to participate with them in a tournament, when they ask me to join my training, I've done so many. I've had a lot of sessions with juniors, a lot of training sessions with juniors, and so I try as much as I can from my end. Do I coach them? No. Do I play tournaments with them? Do I allow them to enter my training sessions? Yes, for sure. And I would always, I would always say yes to that as long as I don't have anything at the time. Because I mean, they are the future, right? They are the future, the growth of the sport.
And they are looking up to people like yourself. And even if you're not coaching them on court with a basket, you're mentoring them. You're having an influence on them, and they're learning from you on court. Be that in the coaching sessions that they're participating with you, or the matches that they play with you as well. I mean, we're always looking to emulate those that are a bit older and those that have gone before us.
Yeah, of course. For that, you always try to set the best example for yourself and then for whoever actually follows or looks.
Because you are the first generation of paddle players in the UAE. That's quite cool.
It is definitely, I mean, obviously, with all the support which came from the community, from the federation, the academy, uh, from WPA, the amount of trainings, uh, I mean, on court, off court meaning the gym or even the camps, let me say. Uh, Also, the tournaments I have traveled for with the backing of my club, which is WPA. So that's been great, and I'm more than grateful, more than blessed. Honestly, this is something I used to dream of at the time where no one knew about the sport, and I just wanted to travel and compete. And then, for me individually, at least, WPA made that dream a reality for me. You might think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I mean, the amount of training from the paddle training and then the gym and then the physio care. When I had my injury, I tore my hamstring. So from 0 to 100, they've taken care of me in every step. And even when I wouldn't have something to speak about, someone would reach out and make sure that I'm not missing anything.
That's amazing, the support that you get, and I think it's great, and that's how the sport is going to grow. When do you think we will see a UAE national in the top 100 of Premier Panel?
So in the top 100, uh, so see, technically speaking, I think Faris and Abdullah, they got Faris Aljanahi and Abdullah Abdullah, I think they reached 170 in the World Padel Tour in the last year of it because they were awarded the wild card to participate in the Abu Dhabi World Padel Tour. In the top 100, it would require that player to be full time, so and to be living abroad. It would be very difficult because I think the highest ranking of a GCC player till date is Mohamed Saadoun, which is 122, and that's with him participating in almost every tournament he can. So I believe in the next year, if we have a UAE national who is backed, to compete throughout a year or a season, we can see that for sure.
You think as soon as this year?
By the end of 2025, if we
Mm.
have a player starting the season in 2025 and training abroad majorly, or living abroad as a professional, I think for sure we can see someone in the top 100. Of course.
That'd be amazing to see.
Yes, because comparing a professional with a UAE national who's working and then at the same time playing. So it makes a big difference, that time of rest, that time of training, that makes a big gap. So it would be amazing, and I believe it's possible.
Yeah, because all of you guys in the UAE national team, you have jobs, right? None of you are full-time paddle players.
Yes, the only one who doesn't is Abdullah, but he's just turned 18 today, and
Time to get a real job.
time to get a real job. But he's gonna go to the military now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in a month.
How long is that now?
Now it's 11 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't it longer?
It was a year, and then it was a year and 1 month, and now it's back to 11, which is the current system.
How is the experience of military service?
Uh, you learn a lot of new things. You discover a lot of strengths you didn't know about you had. It teaches you how to appreciate life. It teaches you how to be grateful for everything you have, and that things are not, what is that word? Things are not for granted. It teaches you how to take things not for granted. And like I said, you learn a lot of things, you meet a lot of people. It's tough physically, mentally. There's a lot of mental tests you'll go through for yourself, meaning patience, how to be patient, and how to follow orders like you should in the military. Yeah, it was a
Because you're
good.
away from home, right? At that time, you're not. It's not like you go in the morning, you come back in the evening. You're sent away.
You're sent away. So you're sent away for the first period is a month exactly. You'll be in the camp, you'll be making your own bed, you'll be washing your own toilet, you'll be cleaning your own room, cleaning around the barracks. Uh, and there's a lot of labor to it. So there's a lot of movement with heavy equipment. Uh, a lot of people struggle. You see a lot of people break at certain points, but all in all, I think it's a very good thing, and I hope it continues. It's a very good building, character building.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because obviously in a lot of European countries now we don't have military service anymore. There's not even one day of it. There used to be a day, and I think they even removed that. And I think it's something really interesting, and that could be very beneficial for especially not children, but young adults at the age of 18. And I think it's something that maybe in Europe we should look at bringing back.
No, it's very good. Honestly, for me, it was a mind-opening experience. Like I said, I met so many new people. Learned so many new things from the military aspect, from the personal aspect. All in all, it's great, honestly.
Did you get to shoot guns?
Of course.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's nice.
Did you go in a tank?
I did. I
How
did.
is that?
Uh, it's hard to describe, but scary yet cool at the same time. But it was cool. Yeah, felt cool.
How many
Yeah.
people can you fit inside a tank?
Well, it depends. So you have so many different tanks out there. There are tanks who can carry from 1 person to 5 people. So it depends. It really depends on the type of tank, where it's from, how it's built.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Slightly digressing away from the original topic of paddle, talking
Yeah.
about tanks, but that's the beauty of these conversations is there's always little nuggets of information that you never thought you'd have. I know more about tanks now than I ever thought I would. Focusing on obviously this part of the world, which country in the Arab world do you think has the most potential for paddle?
The most potential to grow, you mean as a sport or
Let's take it from the perspective of players.
so Currently, if you will look at the Arab world, statistically, as the last Arab tournament, Egypt is the first. They won the tournament. So definitely they are the first in that and they're doing the best.
Why do you think that is?
Honestly, it's hard to say why. However, when we had the GCC Cup, as I remember, the biggest difference maker at that time for us as players was that we played matches before the tournament by a week or 2 weeks, I believe. We played matches against coaches from Dubai, and honestly, from different clubs. So they weren't just from a specific club. And for me personally, I'll always be grateful to every single one of them because at a time where individually I was at a certain level, my interaction with them raised my level so much, and that's how a higher level can give back.
Yeah, definitely. How did they choose your partners in the GCC Cup?
So when it comes to national team representation, uh, teams are always or partners are always selected by the coach. So at that time in GCC Cup, the one in Dubai, uh, for me, I think my first match, there was a match I played with Abdullah, and I specifically asked to play with him, and and the coach at the time was like, okay, and
Did you
then
win the match?
yeah, we won the match.
So then it was a good decision.
It was a good decision. That went well. Uh, and then the match after that, the coach asked me, who do you prefer to play with? And I said, whoever you think is better suited. For me, I'll do my job, and that's the most I can give you. And then he selected my partner for that match.
And then who'd you play with?
My cousin, Mohamed Aljanahi.
Did you win that match?
We won. That was the championship match.
Oh, that was the decider.
Yeah, it was the second match. So the first match, Abdullah and Omar won it. And then the second match, it was me and Hamad. And it went well. It went our way.
Do you still play tennis?
No, of course not. Don't insult me that way, Max.
Why?
No, I don't. Because I take paddle seriously. I enjoy paddle. I don't want to ruin my feeling when playing. And for me personally, I lost interest in tennis when Roger started his downfall. I really lost my tennis passion or interest completely. I don't enjoy watching tennis at all
Until now?
until now. Until
Not
now.
even Alcaraz has brought back a little bit of a spark.
Oh, not at all. Not at like I'll see a spark when I see Novak or Nadal sometimes on the court. Novak, of course, because he's, regardless of what people say, statistically he is the GOAT. 24 Grand Slams, respect. But no, it's just not entertaining anymore. Even in Dubai Open I went to see this year, I was so bored. I was so bored.
My struggle with tennis, and I kind of lost an interest at the same time as you, was obviously you're very attached to a player, right? For example, Federer, been watching him since I was a kid throughout my whole life. Once he started to obviously go a little bit down, I lost interest. And then you don't have that connection with any of the players. And I felt the same way with paddle as well originally, because I don't know who these people are. You have no idea who these people are hitting the ball on the court. But once you start getting into their stories and everything that's happened to them and, you know, how their performances, you kind of get attached as well. And I was reading about Dineno and how he was in a car crash and he was told he wouldn't be able to walk, and now he's back to playing paddle at the highest level. And that's a great story, right? Everyone loves a great story, and you feel for the guy, and then you feel emotionally invested in their success.
Of course.
Do you feel that way about any of the players?
Why I have selected Tapia, because he's young and I believe he will continue for a certain amount of years. Because before that, I did kind of have that connection with Bella. I loved watching Bella play. But then Tapia, like I know about Danino's story. I've sat with his dad, great guy. But I do feel like kind of had that have that connection with Tapia. I do follow a lot. I do watch all of his videos previously when he was young and the injury he went through when he first signed with Knox at a certain age. I think he was 19 or 18 and just turned 18. He had a major ankle injury, which took him off tour for like 3, 4 months. And then he just rose back like crazy. He just rose so high after that injury. Maybe that got me attached after that story.
Do you think that Koya and Tapia will finish number one?
This year, yes.
We will see how well this ages.
Let's see. I'll wait.
Time is on your side. In the UAE, like I mentioned before, we obviously have a lot of great clubs now. In your opinion, I'm not going to ask you which is the best club. What makes a good paddle
You know
club?
my answer.
Yeah, paddle art. I know it's fine. You don't have to say it. But in your opinion, what makes a successful paddle club?
Honestly, besides the management, which is the heroes behind the success you see of every organization, the management of the club, then comes the community within which participates at the club. So you have so many successful clubs which offer different facilities, okay? And a lot of them have a different quality of facility, okay? However, for me personally, is the management of the club and how they treat the people who are the regulars. That's what makes the success of the club, which a lot of people don't see, obviously.
And it's
The
interesting
hard
that
work
you
and
you
sweat.
bring that up. You didn't mention the height of the court. You didn't mention if they have an ice bath. You didn't mention the cryotherapy and these kind of things. Where I feel like in this part of the world we get so drawn into all of the shiny lights, and obviously it's important, but that's not the success.
No, for me personally, it's not how fancy the club is or how expensive this court or if there's a pillar made out of wood or something fancy. It's not that. Yes, it's great for certain clubs which offer the ice bath or the sauna, which is an added value, of course, which not everyone uses. Let's not forget that. Also, you have certain facilities which charge you for that, or certain clubs which charge you extra for that, which deprives people from using. For example, for me, I believe if a club were to have those facilities, it should be complementary with the court usage or part of the club package at least. But then again, it's not my decision. Uh, yeah, like I said, for me, it's the management, the way they control and manage everything, and then the community which is within the club.
If someone was to come to you today and say, Mohammed, I've got $2 million, let's open a paddle club in Dubai, regardless obviously of, WPA and everything else, would you do it? Would you open a paddle club today in Dubai?
Yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, there is a club which launched 2 months ago, and there is a club which launched a month ago, and all of them are doing great. I mean, in every business line, you would see certain outlets close, and then certain outlets open up. If a certain outlet closes, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with that industry. So if a coffee shop closes, does that mean coffee is out of business? Let's all go to matcha. No, please don't go to matcha, Max. Please don't drink matcha.
I hate matcha.
Good.
I cannot stand it. I cannot even taste it.
It's very normal to see a certain club close and a certain club open. So, of course, yes. And I do hear a lot that there's new clubs opening up within the area, which I believe is very good also at the same time.
Yeah, and there's also clubs closing, which is sad and unfortunate,
Yes.
especially in the other Emirates. But that is part of business, and of, as the sport grows, people tend to be drawn towards the bigger, the more successful, and the clubs that are providing them with the services that they're looking for. So some of those clubs do suffer, a lot of them being outdoor clubs. Do you still play paddle outdoors?
Well, last year we had the outdoor courts in WPA, and during winter, I requested for all my trainings to be outdoor because, uh, regardless of the height of having no roof, the outdoor environment is so much more different than the indoor. So once you get adapted to the outdoor, for you to play indoor is so much easier. So I do prefer to play outdoor. However, in Dubai, certain times you can't. So obviously during summer, it's impossible to play outdoor now. But during winter, yes, I love playing outdoors.
Yeah, me too. I think it's great. I mean, it is a bit more challenging. Obviously, you have the elements that come into play, the wind, the sun, all these things. But I think it adds a really interesting impact to the game. Whereas indoor, you have this perfect environment, which is almost a little bit sterile. So I think it's great. And a lot of the professional tournaments are still played outdoors as well.
The majors are mostly held outdoors, yes.
Yeah.
And then it takes a big effect. Like you mentioned, the perfect environment of the AC and all that, and then you have the wind changing or the player needing to adapt. I think you saw it was in Italy, if I'm not mistaken, where Tapia missed the ball and he was going for a smash and he just missed it completely
Yeah, completely missed the ball.
because of the wind. And that's something you would never see that happen indoors.
That made me feel great though when he did that.
Made me feel like he's normal too.
So I do have a little bit of Tapia in me.
We all do.
So, Mohammed, you've had a great paddle career, let's say, for the last 10 years. Where do you see your personal paddle journey going in the next few years?
Honestly, I've never thought about it in that way. I take each challenge as it comes. So, for example, like I said, this is what we're living now is something I couldn't even imagine in the sense of the community, the amount of clubs, the competitions, the level we have risen to. So for me, obviously, for me as part of WPA, I look forward to the new opening in Bahrain, which will be soon. And then I look forward to the new opening in the UK. I can't wait for that, so we can have that grand opening and visit. So, for example, I've never been to the UK, and
No.
this will be a reason for me to go for the opening of WPA.
Do you think paddle will take off in the UK?
Honestly, it should, because I mean, tennis is huge in the UK. There's a lot of good tennis players, so I believe it should. In that sense, it should. And I've heard the clubs currently in the UK are similar to how when paddle started in Dubai. All clubs are fully booked. You would have to book 2 weeks ahead because of the lack of indoor courts and the growth which they should see right now. So I think it will pick up in the UK for sure.
I hope so. I mean, it's getting there. A lot of the people I've spoken to in the UK about paddle and those who are trying to open paddle courts and clubs, they're struggling a lot with permits and finding the right location, the ceiling heights. One of the greatest things about the UAE is that it is very easy to do business here. You can pretty much do whatever you want and within reason and quickly. You can set up a business relatively quickly. Whereas in the UK, getting anything done is a nightmare, which is why everything takes 2 to 3 to 4 to 10 more years than what it does here. And I think that's how the UAE has managed to capitalize on the success of paddle, is being so responsive and facilitating things for all of the entrepreneurs and people wanting to invest in this sport in this country.
Yeah, I mean, before I don't think you had any paddle club in Al Quoz, and then once the green light was given for that, I don't have the numbers, but I would say we have minimum of 30 clubs in Al Quoz.
I counted about a year ago, in a 3 kilometer radius from exactly where we are, there's over 100 paddle courts.
There you go.
But what was in Al Quoz before paddle?
Well, in most paddle clubs, warehouses, you would have had a stockpile of depending where it was rented to, whoever was renting that warehouse. And then they converted it to a paddle club. See, you had gyms at the time, but a paddle club is different than a gym. So when that permit came out, because of the residential areas around Al Quoz, so it made it so prime. The amount of people who live around Al Quoz.
It's true. When you go to the other Emirates or even other countries in the region, this is perfect for paddle. You have this area in the middle of the city with residential areas. People are living 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes away, and they can all get to this central paddle location, this paddle heaven.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a big difference. I mean, don't forget, Al Quoz, or the area we're in right now, is mostly a commercial area, right? For companies to make it easy for business to send out or receive supply and products. So for it to have paddle in the middle of everything, I mean, you can connect someone between Sharjah and Abu Dhabi, and they would come here for a tournament.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who comes here 3 times a week for paddle from Abu Dhabi, and he drives, and it's fine for him because once he reaches this area, at least there's so many other clubs he can go to and play different matches.
It's true. Whereas even Abu Dhabi, all of the clubs are mostly in Musafa, which is a little bit further out of the city in terms of accessibility. It's not quite the same as having this area such as we have in Dubai.
So when it comes to Abu Dhabi, honestly, I don't know about the other like other clubs, but I know that, for example, speaking for WPA recently, we launched in 321 Island Hudayriyat. So it's like a indoor facility, and there's like a 5, 6 courts, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about the amount of courts, but it's on the island and it's close to the city. So I visited the area and it's beautiful. The courts are nice. It's so much easier than going to Musafah because of the traffic.
And how is that club performing?
It's doing very well. So there's a couple of coaches there, and they're doing their programs, their socials, or their tournaments, weekly tournaments, and it's doing nice. It's doing well. Sorry, the area is very nice. Right next to it, there's like a restaurant outlet. It's like similar to Last Exit. There's like a drive-through area, and then there's a beach area. There's a hotel or a resort you could go to. So it's a perfect location for a paddle getaway. Like you would go there and take your room on the beach, play your paddle or do your sports, and then relax in your hotel. Location-wise, it's beautiful. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've heard a lot of the clubs have been struggling in Abu Dhabi. So it's great to see that some clubs are succeeding.
There are multiple clubs. I mean, I follow them on Instagram. They're doing well in Abu Dhabi. I mean, it's growing in Abu Dhabi. I do follow up. I see a lot of tournaments happening, a lot of socials. It's different than Dubai, but it is growing. I
But it's
can say
also a
that.
different demographic.
Exactly, and that makes the biggest difference, I guess.
Yeah, in Abu Dhabi, it's a lot of locals and Emiratis, right? Whereas here you have a lot bigger expat population playing paddle and competing. We see it, especially in the mornings. For example, we're pretty busy in the mornings with expats, work from home or they drop off the kids at school, they come and play paddle. In Abu Dhabi, there's no one playing in the morning.
So honestly, like for Dubai, I can speak and say, yeah, I agree with 100% with what you're saying. But Abu Dhabi, I haven't really entered that area to see, during those timings. But in Dubai, yeah, alhamdulillah, we do have that. I mean, that's the biggest advantage, which I love.
And on a closing note, if you were to say something to the people who've been listening to us have this amazing conversation for the past hour, who are curious about the UAE, curious about paddle in the UAE, if you could change their mind, a lot of people don't want to come to Dubai.
Really?
A lot of people don't like Dubai. Because in the press, Dubai has a terrible reputation in the UK. I don't know if you're aware of the
Is-
amount of,
Are you serious?
oh, unbelievable.
But I see a
Even
lot
my
of,
grandparents, they hate the UAE.
but I see a lot of people from the UK moving to Dubai recently.
Yeah, but there's so much hate. People going to jail, and people think there's some really bad stuff going on.
Look, I'll say this, it's very simple. In Dubai, there are certain rules which everyone has to follow. And then within those rules and guidelines, if you're following the rules, you can do whatever you want within the rules. And everyone is protected legally. Everyone is protected by the law. I mean, I'm sorry, Max, if I took a photo of you without your approval or consent, you can take me to court and you would win that easily because you're protected by
Yeah.
the law. I mean, you could go to a coffee shop and leave out your phone on the. You can leave your wallet. You can leave your phone with cash. You can leave your wallet with cash and your phone on the desk. And
I mean, right now my car is open. The keys are in my car, and it's always the same wherever I go. My front door is open. Actually, I shouldn't say that in case anybody wants to go to my apartment.
but it's protected because the security wouldn't allow anyone to.
Of course, and it makes me laugh when I go back to Europe, and there's still people to this day who tell me, "Oh, you live in Dubai. Do you feel safe?" And you haven't been to the UK, right?
No.
Go to the UK, go outdoors in a city after dark. You will not feel safe, especially in the major cities. I feel so safe in Dubai. I love it here. I'm happy here. I'm not just saying this because you're here, but I think Dubai is one of the safest places on earth.
I mean, I've seen the videos where phone snatching, and then I saw a video. It's a famous video. It's a guy driving a Bugatti Chiron, which is I think worth like 16 million dirhams, and someone drives next to him with a motorbike and starts smashing his window to steal his phone or his watch.
In London.
I mean, for me, I can't afford the Bugatti, but that scares me.
And that will never happen here. When you can afford a Bugatti, drive it in Dubai.
Yes, I'll keep it here.
Not
Don't
in
worry.
London. On that fine piece of advice, Mohamed, thank you so much for spending the time with me. I look forward to having you back on the podcast
course.
again in the near future. I'm sure we'll have many, many things to discuss. Maybe we'll have started an inter-club together, a league of clubs. Let's make it happen.
Let's do that. Let's do that. I think Padel needs that. It needs the clubs to compete in a healthy environment. You know, it will result in a level increase. It will result in it will motivate the players to play more, to compete in a healthy environment.
I agree. I look forward to that happening.
Inshallah.
Until next time, Mohamed.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.